Today's argument is the PTR Raid Testing we have had in the last couple of days, or it should have been PTR Raid Testing over the last couple of days if Thursday wasn't a complete disaster where the servers were permanently down and Blizzard had to cancel the raid testing. But hey, Thursday was only the first 3 bosses, so whatever. Friday, however, was bosses number 4, 5, 6, and 7, so much more relevant bosses in terms of difficulty. This is what we had for yesterday, starting with Araz, which is the 4th boss, so basically Styx level of difficulty, or Rashanan level of difficulty. So the entire logic behind this boss is that he has 3 pillars around him, 1, 2, and then 3 behind here, and he's gonna have some mechanics come from these pillars. The particular one is where the pillar is going to target 3 players with a second, and at the end of the second they will spawn 3 adds. These adds are gonna be moving towards the pylon, and you want to kill them before they reach the pylon. You can also CC them, stun them, slow them, and prevent them from reaching the pylon to empower it. The other main mechanic is the Mega Soak in the middle for the tank. This is going to spawn an add. This add duplicates the mechanics of the boss. On top of this, you don't want to keep him close to the boss, unfortunately, for the melees hoping to turbo cleave this add. Not gonna happen because you have to move this add away enough to not take reduced damage. There it is. This add duplicates the mechanics of the boss. So if the boss is ordering the pylons to do the sacking of the 3 players to spawn the adds, and this add is alive, this add is gonna do it as well. In this case, the boss is doing the dodge mechanic, and so the add is gonna do the exact same thing to another pylon. Here is the dodge mechanic, another one. In the first phase, before the first intermission, you have 2 of these pylons basically active, and you're gonna have to go through all these mechanics. You have the pylons spawning the orbs to dodge, you have the add that is gonna duplicate the mechanics, and you have the sacking with the smaller adds being spawned. The last one of the mechanics in P1 is this thing right here. A bunch of players are gonna be targeted with swirlies, and you have to move around and just let them fall without getting hit. Besides this is the same mechanics. He has to be CC'd and killed. The Mega Soak that spawns the bigger add, which duplicates the mechanics of the boss. Not exactly sure of the timings, to be fair, but eventually the boss will reach intermission. Intermission is pretty simple. It's gonna be knocking back all players, right? This, and then now finally the pylons are attackable. This phase is a bit disappointing. It doesn't actually do anything. You have some beams spawning from the pylons that you have to dodge, and you take a stacking dot the longer the phase lasts. That's all it is. You have to get rid of all 3 of the pylons as you take more and more stacking damage, and once the last of the pylons is over and the boss is done empowering himself from the center of the room, he's going to be taking 100% more damage for 12 seconds. So that's when presumably you want to have your cooldowns on. Once this is over, the phase continues as it was in P1. Nothing really changes, no abilities gets empowered. It's not that you spawn now 5 of these adds when the pylon targets you. It's not that you spawn 2 of these adds. It's not that the pylons spawn the orbs, you have to dodge way more of them, or they move way faster. Nothing actually changes from the mechanics in P1. The intermission, the second intermission, is slightly different in the sense that now you have these swirlies you have to dodge. What a great addition. And then the beams spawned by the pylons are now longer. So even the pylon that you can't even see in the screen can reach you here as you're dealing with this pylon. And that's about it. That's pretty much the only major thing that happens in this phase, which is pretty disappointing, really. Once you deal with also the second normal phase and the boss reaches, I believe, 25%, I think it is, or close to, he is going to create this dark star behind him and start the soften rage. You are getting sucked in, and you're getting progressively sucked in more and more the longer the phase goes on. the main mechanic that still remains here is that you can still get 3. Again, it's still 3, did not increase, 3 players targeted, and the odds spawning, except now the odds are always going towards the end of the room, towards the star in the back, and you have to kill them before they reach it. That's it. That's all this boss does. You know, the P1 idea of the 3 pylons and the mini boss duplicating the abilities is nice. You could do more things with that, but especially the intermission is pretty undercooked right now. It looks like it needs a bit more to be an entertaining boss. Talking about needing a bit more, definitely is not these 3 who have way too many things to deal with. This is what spawned the whole idea of the third Demon Hunter spec. Why? Because this guy is a Havoc Demon Hunter casting Havoc Demon Hunter abilities. This guy is a Vengeance Demon Hunter casting Vengeance Demon Hunter abilities. Who is this guy? He's a Void Demon Hunter casting Void abilities. That's the whole specialty of this boss fight. So the boss starts, you have this Fell Inferno mega AoE damage starting at the very beginning of the fight. What you also get is these 2 spawns. What these do is something that will carry on for the entirety of the phase. Whoever stays in it will gain a magical damage debuff, which will gain more and more stacks the longer he stays on the same player. However, it's very relevant because in the fight you will get these spawns right here, these big circles. So these big circles keep growing. As you can see here, this keeps growing. So the way you deal with this soak is for the guys with the magical damage debuff to go inside of them. They take no damage when they stay in, but they soak the pool and they remove the pool basically from existing, like this one right here. However, as they are soaking it, they also take basically a healing absorb shield you have to heal through. And of course, it gets more and more dangerous when you have more and more stacks of the debuff because you take a harder and harder dot. So eventually you want to dispel this and let this jump on someone else and repeat the entire process on that player having to go on these pools and, you know, shrink them. The other mechanic is the one from the Havoc Demon Hunter, which is the Hunt. This one right here is going to jump around, target a DPS, create this line, and now players need to stay between the boss and the targeted player to reduce the damage taken. However, you have an AoE circle around you, so it's not that you can stack on the same place. You want to spread towards the line, multiple players want to spread to reduce the damage and not clip themselves with the AoE. There is also a tank mechanic right here. You see that it's being cast on the tank called Fracture, Vengeance Demon Hunter, casting Fracture. This is going to split the soul of the tank, I believe, in 2. It's going to spawn these 2 copies. One is over here. The other one I think is behind here. Someone else has to go and soak this, because right now the tank cannot be healed until these souls are brought back to him. That's the other mechanic in this fight. You have the frontal I-beam or Fell Devastation of the Vengeance Demon Hunter. You have some Fell Rushes being cast here and there by the Havoc Demon Hunter, and the Void Step cast by the Void Demon Hunter, I guess it is. These are the Fell Rushes cast by the Havoc Demon Hunter. And these are all the mechanics available in P1. You have the 2 guys with the magical debuff who needs to shrink the pools, dodge the Void Step, dodge the Fell Rushes, and when the hunt happens, you have to stay in the hunt to spread the damage being taken, and when the tank is taking the Fracture from the Vengeance Demon Hunter, you have to soak the 2 souls spawned by Fracture. This will continue until they reach 100 energy. The bosses have different HP, but they need to be killed at the same time, or they will start pulsing for quite a lot of AoE damage. Once you reach 100 energy, you will go through intermissions. I'm not sure if the order is always the same, but when we were trying it, it was. The first intermission, as they all go into metamorphosis at the same time. The first one is the... What's this? Vengeance? No, this is the Void one. This is the Void Demon Hunter who sucks you in and spawns a bunch of orbs you have to soak before they reach the boss. You get a 5-second debuff, which makes you take more damage if you soak more of these orbs, but that's all that the intermission does. Once the intermission is over, They repeat the phase as normal. You know, you have here it is, the fracture on the Prot Paladin. He fractures the Prot Paladin, it spawns the 2 souls of the Prot Paladin, you have to soak them, right? Same mechanics continuing throughout the entire fight until they reach, again, 100 energy, and this time they go, all of them, into meta. And this time the meta will be from the Havoc Demon Hunter, because you have now the Kaiveza intermission. Dodge. I believe in Mythic this will hit all players. With the Mega Fel Rush cast of this Havoc Demon Hunter, and you just have to stay alive. That's all of the mechanic of this intermission. Then the phase will continue as normal. Again, nothing changes in here. And once you get again towards the max energy, you will enter the last of the intermissions, which is the one of the Vengeance Demon Hunter. This one is a leap with Infernal Strike into Feldev. Now, obviously, for scientific purposes, we ate an entire Fel Devastation, of course, for testing. It was okay, I guess. And once this is over, technically we had a few wipes where, because we weren't still used to the fight, the bosses were at much higher HP. I believe at like 10% or 5% HP, they actually went into an intermission where they did all of their intermissions at once. So you're getting sucked in while having to pick up the orbs before they reach the boss, while there is a Vengeance Demon Hunter leaping around and coning with Fel Devastation half the room, while you have a bunch of lines of Fel Rush that you have targeted from and deal damage to other players. It would be interesting if this will also continue in Mythic, because, you know, technically this is the 5th boss of the raid, even though Blizzard called it optional. You know, the 5th boss is like Brood Twister in Norbar Palace, or Kaiveza in Norbar Palace, or like Sprocket in this raid in Season 2. So it's not exactly an easy one, right? So it would be interesting to see how the last phase will actually end up. Here they were just too low HP to do anything else. Once they were done with the normal intermission, they just died right after. Pretty interesting fight. Not as interesting though as Fractillius, this guy right here. So the entire logic of this guy is that he has like 6 crystals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and he's playing Tetris with them. He is creating a bunch of walls, and after 2 rounds of creating walls, you get targeted for wall destruction. So our strat that we went with is dividing, of course, as you can see here, the segments into 6, and we chose one safe spot, which was red. We put the tank on blue, because when he does the tank buster, you also get 1 wall created, so the tanks can always just create the wall here. The healer goes here, the melee goes here, and the ranged go here. So now you get the black orb on top of you. These 2 spots are for the range, this is for the melee, this is for the healer. And then once the cast comes through of the entropic conjunction thingy, you get slam back and you create a bunch of walls. And then this repeats a few seconds later. You have, again, the black orb on top of you. It's going to be doing the conjunction where you see yourself getting knocked back with the creation of the walls. You can see the walls here. The difference between the dark one and the light one is the fact that the dark one is a void wall, which creates much bigger and larger circles around players that you have to stay away from the rest of the raid from. You will see now when you get targeted by the white beam, which is what is going to bitch slap you and knock you back and break the wall. Basically like Neltarion in Aberus. You have to aim yourself at the wall in the different segments to make sure you all get, bam, bitch slapped in the back and break the walls. The normal walls create circles on the ground. The void walls, the dark ones, target players with the circles to explode. So basically you still have to move out of the mess on the ground. Shortly after though, and this is the key of the entire encounter, again, it repeats. However, it keeps going faster and faster. It keeps accelerating to the point where at certain situation, it will no longer be wall, wall, wall break. It will end up being wall, wall, and 2 seconds later wall break. At some point it will be wall, wall break, wall. At some point it will be wall, wall, wall break almost at the same time. So it will get more and more complicated with the overlapping. You can see Much later on, for example, you have a situation where the boss is now entering near execute phase. You get players targeted with the white pillar of the breaking of the wall, but simultaneously you can already see the black orb, and you can see there are way more lines now, because it's not just players targeted with the wall breaking, you also have the walls being created happening practically at the same time. So you have players getting bitch slapped to break the walls, you have the circles of the walls being broken, but while all of this is happening, you still have players creating walls at the same time. And here we are putting, unfortunately, 3 players in the same spot, bringing triple wall backwards, which makes this a bit hard to get back in the safe spot. And that's the entire thing of the boss. It's not nearly as much of an even and smooth set of mechanics, you know, when they are happening, like Magzi and its bombs being created, or even One-Armed Bandit or Sprocket, where their timers are more fixed. This one is not. This one has way more flexible timings that you have to adapt to pretty quickly, between the breaking of the walls and the creating of the walls, and also keeping an eye out, of course, on how many walls there are in the different segments, because at the end of the day, the whole mechanic is, if you get to have 6 walls in the same segment, you die. Because these beams are getting empowered and extended the more walls there are, and if it reaches 6, it touches the boss and it's a wipe. Right, that's the entire thing about this boss. You know, the boss had seemingly lower HP. We were scaled down to 676 item level, I think, which is very low considering this is a heroic boss of the next tier. So you would want to be reaching this boss like 695 next season. So we were definitely much weaker than where we would have been. So the boss was possibly also weakened just to test it, because as you can see from the timer here on details, we are barely above 3 minutes and the boss is dead. Right? So, and also we are literally 6 sealing the fight. We are 6 sealing, barely above 3 minutes, and the boss is dead. So possibly also it will get slightly longer, but definitely not one of these 6+ or even 7+ long minute fights. This kind of boss, it seems much more of a quick, hectic and fast kind of boss. Who will not be that is Salhadaar, who is the 7th boss of the raid. So Fractillius, the one before, was basically your Kaiveza, was your One-Armed Bandit, right, type of boss. This one is your Tindral, he is your Silken Court, he is your Magzi kind of fight. And also, based on his 3 phases and 2 intermissions, looks like your standard 8+ minutes kind of boss fight. So initially it's very simple. You pull the boss and he does the Oathbound Decree. This puts 3 stacks on you, which by the end of this phase he will cast the Oath whatever, and if you still have these stacks on you, you get mind controlled, right? So the whole mechanic here is he does a double tank combo, Vanquish and Conquer. Vanquish is you dodge, Conquer is you stay in and you get rid of 1 stack. Now we went overboard here and just had everyone in to spread the damage and lose 1 stack. Likely he won't really do this. The entire idea is to have one group deal with the first cast and the second group deal with the second, because he does these casts in quick succession. Here's the second one. It's always 2 casts of the cone to dodge and 2 casts of the soak in one single like combo. And he's gonna do this 3 times in P1. So you have time for, you know, your group number 1 to get in 3 times and get rid of your 3 stacks, and then group number 2 to do this 3 times and get rid of the 3 stacks. Same thing here. Now we already have only 1 stack remaining on most players. He has, by the way, a bird flying above the room, which he can command to do things. This is annoying. It's a claw that will suck you in and do a bunch of damage and stay on the ground, and also take for annoying damage if you step on it. The other thing that he can do throughout here is the command Besiege. He does it right now, which is going to do exactly that. He's going to siege the room with these beams running around. This becomes tricky when you just realize you have to soak. You have to stay inside of the circle, the Conquer, to get rid of your stacks when this is happening. And of course the Conquer knocks you up. So you have to place yourself in a position, unlike me, that gets run over by the besiege, where you get hit and knocked up by also dodging these incoming beams, right? That's the other mechanic of the fight in P1, and it's pretty much all there is. You have the combo of the Tank Buster, the Cone to dodge, and the Conquer to soak to get rid of your stacks. This thing right here to knock you around with these claws of the bird, technically a dragon, flying around you. And that's pretty much all there is, until he ends the phase by doing the Invoke the Oath. This is the big hit, which also mind controls you if you still have any stacks of the mind control thing on you. He's gonna do it, bunch of damage, nobody had the stacks on, so we are safe. Now is when he actually pulls in his dragon, you get knocked back, dragon comes in. The whole idea here is that you're gonna get targeted by these big circles, you're gonna move away from the raid twice. So when these end, you will see the circles remaining over. There they are. He's gonna do it once, and then he is going to do it again. These are about to turn into portals. What gets tricky is that he's going to be doing his Dimension Breath, and based on the direction of the beam through the portal, the beam is also going to be replicated. So you have to take a look, presumably turning yourself around and look at where you spawn the portals to see where these beams are going, because not looking at the back doesn't allow you to see that, for example, there's a beam about to cut through the entire raid, right? Very dangerous. So that's the mechanic right here. Once this is over, though, end of the phase, you move over to your group, split into two, just like Ansurek Intermission. You have to use your cloak, required for this fight, to get through these portals. Unlike Ansurek Intermission, this seems much simpler. You have a single guy to interrupt and a single guy that is gonna blow up, I think, in a minute if you're not done with this phase. But besides this, there is really nothing special happening. Just get rid of these ads and go back to the main platform. This is gonna repeat itself. This is the same end of P1 with the dragon, which is another intermission actually, with the dragon and doing the portal spawn and then having to dodge the beam. Is the exact same thing. These claws are still in this phase. Now, what happens here, I believe, is the other intermission technically, where he is about to eat his dragon. King's hunger makes him eat his dragon. The logic here is that you are getting like a 100% or even I think 200% damage amp, and however, at the end of this amp, this HP is going to be eaten by the boss. Now, this amp was supposed to be 30 seconds long. Actually, it wasn't 30 seconds long. Not sure what ended it, actually, but it lasted like 21 seconds, I think. 19, maybe. 19 seconds, yeah. And now he has almost twice the HP. Not sure. Very unlikely that it was supposed to happen like this. However, the last phase, you get these things cast on multiple players, on me as well, and you have to move out. Why? Kiveza P1. They took a lot of stuff, honestly, from Kiveza in this raid. So you spawn this and then you get sucked in based on where you spawn these things. That's what it does. However, unlike Kiveza, this then turns into a moving Silken Court intermission. Because now you have these stars, these spiky stars. On top of that, they do the Silken Court thing. This thing right here, except they are moving. So they are moving and also extending the longer it goes through. Now, you can get rid of these with this mechanic right here. Let's see, it spawn these star killer swings of the copies of the boss are targeting a player. And these players, while this is happening, have to direct themselves towards the stars so the lines reach the stars and kill the stars and stop all of these expanding circles from happening, right? So in this case, for example, the tank, very simple, right in front of this one, you stay here and you blow it up. Right, that's the logic, except there is like 6 of them, which is quite hard to deal with when you're fighting this boss in this phase, especially because of how messy it becomes towards the end, towards the end of the phase, because of how cluttered it ends at the end. It's still cool, honestly. That phase was still pretty good. Even the start of even P1, I said it was similar to the Natrius, except the Natrius P1 was much worse than this one. This one is much cooler of a phase than the Natrius. So looked like a pretty good fight. Pretty interesting to see all of the additions that will happen in Mythic, of course. Obviously, the last boss of the raid won't be testable on the PTR, so this is as far as we can go. In terms of boss testing, the 7th boss of the raid, this one so far looked pretty cool, the coolest of the bosses tested. I would put Fractillius as the second best, and then the Soul Hunters, and then the 4th boss, Araz, which seemed the least finished of the bosses being tested. So for today, this was the testing to be had in the PTR, the 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th boss tested on Friday. So looking for any more testing happening in 2 weeks, where we are getting the mythic testing of the bosses. For today, this is what we have on this Saturday. So with this out of the way, it is now time to leave each other. I'm going to start by thanking everyone for having watched the video, of course, as well as everyone else for supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, here it comes again. The nose itching as a proof of having talked for too long is here.